dropping shit at the pilot. Niggas be broken, be sobbing, but still talking shit like they violent. Niggas is broke.
The best time to be a basketball fan. The NBA playoffs, where legends are made, legacies are fortified, for better or for worse. This is where the real season starts. Everything counts from here on out. This is where we decide who the champion is. Now, before I start this video, I just wanted to let you guys know that this video is part of a collab I am doing with Legend of Winning, aka Low, where we will preview both conferences. So if you want to see my predictions for the Eastern Conference and Low's prediction for the Eastern Conference, check out his video. The link will be in the description and at the end of this video as an end card, or you can just check out his channel. But with that being said, it's pretty self-explanatory. Let's get right into it. Our first matchup is the Warriors against the Trail Blazers. I'm gonna pass it off to Low because I think this is gonna be a pretty easy one. So I'm gonna just give it a Low real quick.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy matchup. Portland is a really good team, but they're just not matching up at all when it comes to this Golden State Warriors team. No need to really go into any depth at all because I think this is going to be a sweep in favor of the Golden State Warriors.
I also agree with Low on that one. The Warriors in 4. It's simply the best offense in the league against one of the worst defenses in the league. Damian has done a lot to carry this team, but I just feel like the Warriors are just way too much for this team. The next matchup we have is the Clippers against the Utah Jazz. Now I'm gonna go first on this one because even though I hate on the Clippers a lot on the podcast, I'm actually go with the Clippers here, but in 7. I feel like this series is gonna be ultra competitive, but we just have a team here who is pretty good in the first round and has the experience versus a team who wasn't even in the playoffs last year. Plus, I feel like Blake Griffin can really take advantage of that weakness in the 4th spot for Utah.
I 100% agree. Everything from the experience to Blake Griffin taking advantage. I think that this is the series that the Clippers really use to exercise what they have when it comes to matching up against Utah. However, I don't have it going to 7. I have it going to 6. I think that the experience will kind of kick in. If it goes to a 7, to be honest with you, it's a toss-up at that point. If you go to 7 games with Utah, I don't like that. But even if it go to 7 and I don't like those odds, I would still lean Clippers, but I actually have the Clippers in 6. But like you said, the experience, Blake Griffin being able to take an advantage, and George Hill is a solid player. I don't know if he's going to be able to consistently guard Chris Paul, so Clippers in 6.
The next matchup we have is the annual matchup of the Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs. And we all know these are two gritty teams, two slow-paced teams. But I'm going to give it to Low first.
San Antonio, Memphis, man, what a classic we have on our hands yet again. I'm going to lean towards San Antonio. Memphis the entire season has looked pretty lost, inconsistent with their offense. I don't know where exactly this team is as their identity. It's almost like they have an identity crisis because part of them wants to be somewhat of an inside presence. However, they have Marc Gasol knocking down threes now, so it is fairly concerning. However, on San Antonio, you know exactly what you're going to get out of that team. Kawhi Leonard is having an MVP type season, and I think he's going to continue to have that type of effect in the playoffs. So I have San Antonio in 5.
I also agree with Low. I feel like the Spurs are going to win, but I do have the Spurs in 6. I just feel like these two teams, when they face each other, they've always been notoriously good games. But I just think it's going to be competitive, but at the end of the day, the Spurs are just better in almost every single way. It's just, I think the grit is going to get to the Spurs' head. But yeah, Spurs in 6. The next matchup we have is the Houston Rockets versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. James Harden versus Russell Westbrook. And I feel like this one will actually be a pretty close series since Harden really hasn't played good against OKC. And I feel like OKC, for some reason, this is just a gut feeling, I feel like they are capable of winning one away game. And OKC is always a tough place to play in. So I feel like this will go to 7. But again, the Rockets having home court, still being the better team at the end of the day, I got the Rockets in 7.
Wow, I'm gonna have to disagree with you, man. I think that I agree that it's gonna go to a game 7. Houston and OKC, this is probably the best first round series that we could ever imagine, that we could ever ask for. But I'm gonna have to actually lean towards OKC in a 7-game series. I think if it goes to 7 games, Houston, that means Houston just isn't knocking down their shots. Because if Houston's knocking down their shots, I think it should be over with before 7 games. The thing that really concerns me, however, about OKC is Russell Westbrook. I know people love to give Russell Westbrook a lot of credit, and rightfully so. However, I've watched him throughout his entire career, and he consistently has those 1 playoff games, maybe even 2 in a series, where he just makes a crazy decision and it ends up costing them the game. But the reason why I'm leaning towards OKC, and hopefully, you know, we'll get a 7-game series out of this, is just because of defensive presence. People don't want to give that OKC team credit, but offensively, obviously Houston has it. But on the defensive end, Steven Adams, Andre Roberson, Victor Oladipo is also a very, very great defensive player. I think he's extremely underrated defensively, and they can just kill him on a fast break, because outside of what Harden, there's nobody who's really athletic that's going to keep up with them on the break. So I actually have OKC in 7.
So moving on to the second round, the Warriors versus the Clippers. Now, this was a matchup that we should have had last year if it wasn't for the injury to CP3 versus Blake. I'm going to pass it off to Lo first. What do you think?
I think the Golden State Warriors are going to blow the Clippers out. I think the Warriors, especially Curry and Draymond, they're sick and tired of this hypothetical that should have happened but didn't happen, and that's the only reason why the Golden State Warriors went to the finals. All that talk will be completely shut down and closed for the remainder of Chris Paul and Blake Griffin's career. That hypothetical will no longer stand the test of time, because I do believe Golden State will come out and just completely embarrass the Clippers like they normally do in the regular season anyway. So I actually have the Golden State Warriors in 5 games.
I completely agree with Lo. I actually have the Warriors in 5 as well. I feel like the Clippers' length is definitely going to bother the Warriors for a game maybe, but at the end of the day, the Clippers have no one that can guard KD, Clay, and Curry. Maybe CP3 on Steph Curry, but you still have the other 2 guys to worry about. So at the end of the day, the Clippers just are not prepared to go up against the firepower that the Warriors have. And the next matchup we have in the second round is the Spurs versus the Rockets or OKC. Now, I think we both agree on this, but I got the Spurs coming out of here in 6. 4 if they face OKC, because I feel like if they face OKC, it's just, look, Russell Westbrook is an amazing one-man guy, but going up against the Spurs with Kawhi, going up against the Spurs with Greg Popovich's coaching, it's just going to be way too much. But with Houston, I feel like Houston does have more weapons, could give them a game or 2. So in that case, I do have the Spurs in 6. But I feel like Kawhi, you can just put Kawhi on either Harden and Russ and just lock them down.
I completely agree. I might have it in 5. Kawhi is that type of a player where you can just put him on Russ, Harden, KD, almost anybody in the NBA, and he immediately affects the outcome of the game. And the reason why this is going to be a massive problem for, regardless of it's OKC or Houston, like you so eloquently said, is because they rely too much on one player. And when you rely too much on one player and you run into a team like San Antonio who has a player that can guard that one player, then everything just completely changes and switches tides in favor of San Antonio. So I actually have San Antonio in 5.
The last series of the Western Conference is obviously the Western Conference Finals, and it is the Spurs versus the Warriors, the matchup that we thought was actually going to happen last year until the Spurs got upset by the Thunder. And to me, I have the Warriors in 6. I know a lot of people are going to say Spurs maybe, if they're going to lean the other way, or if the Warriors is going to be in 7. Don't get me wrong, this series will be ultra competitive. Either each game will be really close, or they will trade blowouts. But I feel like if it does come down to those close games, I just trust a team with 3 closers in KD, Klay, and Steph than a team who really only has Kawhi and maybe Aldridge. I just don't see this going to a game 7, but it still is going to be ultra competitive.
I agree with the outcome, but disagree with the amount of games. I wholeheartedly believe that the Golden State Warriors are just going to run through the Western Conference this year just because of matchups that favor the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors is just too much, and it's going to be too much to handle. The problem with the San Antonio Spurs, they're players that are supposed to be dominant inside the lane. They are kind of running on steam at this point. I don't know what Pau Gasol is going to look like in the conference finals. I don't know what LaMarcus Aldridge is going to look like that deep in the playoffs because he's never been that deep before. Kawhi Leonard is really the only player that's going to be consistent, and then even he's going to have his hands full guarding Kevin Durant on one end and trying to consistently put up 25 and 30 points while still being efficient as well. Then you don't know what you're going to get out of Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, especially at that age, that deep in the playoffs. I just think it's too much for them to guard, and I really don't think they have too many answers offensively neither. So I'm leading Golden State in 5 games.
I don't know, man. The Spurs, I think they're better than 5, but hey, we'll see. So that concludes our prediction for the Western Conference Finals. At the end of the day, we both have the Warriors and the Spurs meeting in the Western Conference Finals, and the Warriors just winning. But with that being said, again, if you want to see the Eastern Conference, check out his video. There will be an end card, and the link will be in the description. But with that being said, I am out. Peace.